The Roy Orbison mystery finally solved, and isn't good. Roy Kelton Orbison was born on April 23, 1936, in the small town of Vernon, Texas. The world he entered was still bruised from the Great Depression, a time when every penny counted, and dreams often had to wait their turn. His family was working class, the kind of people who knew the value of hard labor and quiet resilience. Yet, in the middle of all the dust and grit of everyday life, there was a boy with a spark in his eyes and a sound in his soul. That spark began to flicker when Roy was just 6 years old, and his father placed a guitar in his hands. It wasn't shiny or expensive, but to Roy, it was more than an instrument. It was an invocation. He sat with it for hours, his small fingers pressing against the strings, trying to coax out melodies that lived somewhere deep inside him. By the age of 8, he was already performing on a local radio station. His voice, small but unmistakably distinct. Music wasn't just something he enjoyed. It was a shelter, a private language he could speak even when words failed him. His parents encouraged him, knowing that their son's connection to music was something rare. In a household where emotions were often kept under wraps, music gave Roy permission to feel everything, to let sadness, longing, and hope pour out without shame. The sounds that shaped him came from everywhere. The lonesome cry of Hank Williams, the smooth croon of Bing Crosby, the deep spiritual pull of Southern gospel. Each voice became a part of him, weaving into the fabric of the young boy who would one day sing with a range and intensity no one could ignore. When the Orbison family moved to Wink, Texas, Roy was still just a teenager, but already he was forming his own identity as a musician. Wink was a dusty oil town where entertainment didn't come easy. So Roy created his own. He gathered a group of friends and formed his first band, the Wink Westerners. They played school dances, local events, anywhere that would have them. These performances weren't just practice. They were small steps toward a destiny that even Roy couldn't yet see. On those modest stages, Roy learned the rhythm of connection, how to draw people in, how to hold them in a song, until they forgot the troubles they'd walked in with. He was beginning to understand that music wasn't only about sound. It was about presence, about making strangers feel like you had reached into their chest and touched something only they knew was there. In these years, the seeds of his future were being planted. He was discovering that his voice could carry more than notes. It could carry the weight of his own heart. After a modest start with Sun Records, Roy Orbison's career took a pivotal turn when he signed with Monument Records in the early 1960s. This move would prove to be a defining moment, largely because of the influence of producer Fred Foster. Foster recognized something truly special in Orbison, not just his voice, but his ability to convey raw, deep emotion. Fred Foster wasn't just interested in making catchy hits. He wanted to craft songs that would resonate on a much deeper level. Together, they began to develop a sound that was unlike anything else at the time. Orbison's music wasn't about fast beats or rebellious energy like the early rock and roll crowd. It was more about vulnerability, heartbreak, and longing. Their collaboration produced some of Orbison's most memorable and enduring songs. Only the Lonely was one of the first to show the world his unique vocal style. A soaring, operatic range filled with pain and tenderness. It was a song that stood out because it captured the loneliness many people feel but rarely hear expressed so powerfully in popular music. Following that, hits like Crying and Running Scared further cemented his reputation. Each song told a story, not just through the lyrics, but through the way Orbison sang. His voice would rise and fall dramatically, moving from soft, almost whispering moments to intense crescendos filled with emotion. This was a style that was almost theatrical in its delivery, giving his songs a timeless quality. Then came "Oh Pretty Woman," a song that became a massive hit and is still instantly recognizable today. It combined a catchy, driving rhythm with Orbison's emotional vocal style, bridging the gap between pop appeal and heartfelt expression. This period at Monument Records was more than just commercial success. It was a transformation for Orbison as an artist. Before this, he was a talented singer with potential, but under Foster's production, he became a trailblazer who redefined what it meant to be a pop star. His music wasn't just entertainment, it was an emotional experience. Orbison's influence extended far beyond the charts. His style inspired generations of musicians, from rock to country to alternative genres. Artists admired how he could express vulnerability and strength at the same time, something rare in male vocalists of the era. In short, the early 1960s at Monument Records were the years when Roy Orbison's voice found its true home, a place where his unique blend of emotion, vocal power, and storytelling could shine. It set the foundation for a career that would leave a lasting legacy on music history. Roy Orbison's artistic style was truly one of a kind, something that set him apart from many of his While the culture of rock music in the late 1950s and early 1960s was often carefree, loud, and rebellious, Orbison took a completely different path. His music and persona brought a sense of mystery, depth, and emotion that was rare in the industry. One of the most remarkable things about Orbison was his incredible vocal range. He was known for a 3-octave range, which is quite impressive for any singer. This wide range allowed him to explore different emotional tones within his songs, shifting seamlessly from soft, vulnerable notes to powerful, soaring highs that could send chills down your spine. His voice wasn't just technically skilled, it was filled with genuine feeling that connected deeply with listeners. But it wasn't just the sound of his voice that made him special. His songs were often heartfelt ballads about love, loss, and longing. Unlike the typical upbeat, energetic rock songs that celebrated youth and freedom, Orbison's music often explored the darker, more complex emotions of the human experience. His lyrics touched on heartbreak and yearning in a way that felt authentic and relatable to many people. To match his unique musical style, Orbison developed a stage persona that was just as distinctive. He dressed in black clothing from head to toe and famously wore dark sunglasses during performances. This look gave him an air of mystery and helped create a strong visual identity that people immediately recognized. The dark glasses weren't just a fashion statement. They added to the enigmatic aura that surrounded him and allowed him to perform with a sense of vulnerability while still maintaining an almost untouchable presence. This mysterious persona stood in sharp contrast to the wild, energetic antics of other rock stars of the time. Orbison's performances were more restrained and intense, focusing attention on his voice and the emotions behind his songs. Audiences were drawn in not just by the music, but by the feeling that they were witnessing something deeply personal and powerful. In many ways, Orbison was ahead of his time. His style influenced not only the sound of pop and rock, but also how artists could express emotion on stage without relying on flashy theatrics or rebellion. He showed that sometimes silence and subtlety can be just as powerful as loud guitars and wild dance moves. This unique combination of vocal talent, emotional depth, and a striking stage presence made Roy Orbison a true original in the world of music. He wasn't just a singer. He was a storyteller who used his voice and persona to connect with the hearts of millions. Roy Orbison's career saw an incredible resurgence in the 1980s, a period that reintroduced him to a whole new generation of music lovers and secured his legacy as one of rock and roll's most enduring voices. After some quieter years in the 1970s, this comeback wasn't just a return. It was a powerful reminder of the timelessness of his talent. One of the key moments in this resurgence was his collaborations with other major artists of the time. In particular, his duet with Crystal Gayle, That Lovin' You Feelin' Again, earned him a Grammy Award, highlighting his continued relevance and artistry in a changing music landscape. This song showcased Orbison's ability to blend his classic vocal style with contemporary sounds, bridging generations of fans. Perhaps even more iconic was his role as a founding member of the Traveling Wilburys, a supergroup that brought together some of the biggest names in music: Bob Dylan, George Harrison from the Beatles, Tom Petty, Jeff Lynne, and Roy Orbison himself. This group wasn't just a star-studded collaboration. It was a musical experiment where each artist brought their unique style, creating a blend of rock, folk, and pop that captivated audiences worldwide. Orbison's voice stood out in the Traveling Wilburys songs, adding that unmistakable emotional depth and soaring quality that fans loved. Tracks like Handle with Care highlighted how well his voice mixed with the others, creating a rich, textured sound. The group's albums were both critically acclaimed and commercially successful, proving that Orbison's talents were just as powerful decades after his initial rise to fame. This period also brought renewed media attention and admiration from fellow musicians, many of whom cited Orbison as a major influence on their own work. His unique vocal style, heartfelt songwriting, and enigmatic stage presence continued to inspire artists across genres. Sadly, this remarkable comeback was cut short by Orbison's untimely death in 1988. But even in his final years, his music remained vibrant, and his influence only grew stronger. The 1980s resurgence ensured that his legacy would be remembered not just as a voice of the past, but as a timeless force in music history. Roy Orbison's return to the spotlight in the 80s was a testament to his incredible talent and the emotional power of his music. It showed that true artistry transcends time, and that genuine emotion in song can touch hearts across generations. Behind the soaring vocals and timeless hits, Roy Orbison's life was marked by profound personal tragedies that deeply affected him and shaped his music's emotional depth. In 1957, Roy married Claudette Frady, a woman who would become not only his partner, but also his inspiration. Their marriage brought joy, but it was tragically cut short. In 1966, this sudden loss struck Roy hard, casting a shadow over his life and career. Her death left a hole that no amount of fame or success could fill. Roy's grief was immense, and it echoed in the pain and longing expressed in many of his songs. But the heartbreak didn't end there. Just 2 years later, in 1968, tragedy struck again with unimaginable cruelty. While Roy was away on tour, a fire broke out in his family home. In this horrific accident, his two eldest sons, Roy, Dwayne, and Anthony, lost their lives. The loss was unbearable. Losing a spouse was devastating enough, but to lose two children in such a tragic way was beyond comprehension. Roy Orbison's music, already filled with emotional intensity, took on an even deeper layer of sorrow and longing after these events. Fans and critics alike felt the authenticity of his pain in his ballads. His personal suffering was woven into his artistry, making his voice not just powerful, but profoundly human. Despite these unimaginable losses, Roy continued to perform and create music. His resilience was remarkable, and his ability to channel his grief into his songs left a legacy of emotional honesty that continues to resonate with listeners around the world. These personal tragedies remind us that behind the glamour of the stage and the bright lights of fame, Roy Orbison was a man who endured real heartache, yet found a way to transform his pain into art that speaks to the soul. After enduring unimaginable losses in the 1960s, Roy Orbison found hope and a fresh start in 1969 when he married Barbara Jacobs. This marriage was more than just a new chapter. It became the cornerstone for healing and rebuilding both his personal life and his career. Barbara wasn't just a supportive wife. She became Roy's closest confidant and strongest ally through some of the most difficult times he ever faced. Barbara's role in Roy's life went far beyond that of a traditional spouse. She was deeply involved in managing the day-to-day challenges that come with a career in music. She understood the demands placed on Roy as an artist. The long hours on the road, the pressures of the studio, and the emotional toll that fame and tragedy had taken on him. Her support provided him with a much-needed sense of stability and calm in a world that had often felt chaotic and harsh. Together, they built a family. Barbara and Roy had 2 sons, which brought new light and joy into Roy's life. These children were a fresh source of love and hope, and Barbara worked tirelessly to nurture their family life, balancing motherhood with her role in Roy's career. Her steady presence gave Roy the confidence to continue making music and performing, even when the weight of his past losses threatened to overwhelm him. Barbara was much more than just a wife behind the scenes. She became Roy's partner in every sense, handling business decisions, helping coordinate tours, and offering emotional support when the pressures of the spotlight grew heavy. Their partnership was a true collaboration built on trust and mutual respect, and it was essential to Roy's resilience. This period of Roy Orbison's life reflected a deep renewal, not just a continuation. With Barbara's love and encouragement, Roy was able to push forward creatively. He recorded new songs, performed live, and reclaimed his place in the music world. Barbara's influence helped ensure that Roy's talent and legacy endured beyond the hardships that had once threatened to silence his voice. Their life together showed that even after profound tragedy, love and partnership could provide the strength to keep moving forward, to create, and to inspire. Barbara Jacobs' unwavering support was a key reason why Roy Orbison's music continued to touch hearts long after his early trials, leaving a lasting imprint on the world. Roy Orbison's music is instantly recognizable for its deep emotional pull, a haunting sadness woven into every note. But this wasn't just a musical style. It reflected something far more personal. His songs carried an undercurrent of sorrow and longing that felt genuine, as if he was singing not just about fictional heartbreaks, but his own inner pain. Fans and critics alike sensed there was more behind that mysterious dark glasses persona. From the very beginning of his career, Roy presented himself differently than most rock stars of his time. The era was full of bold, rebellious figures flashing bright smiles and wild energy. Roy, on the other hand, cultivated an image that was almost the opposite: reserved, enigmatic, almost distant. His signature black attire and dark sunglasses acted like a protective mask, shielding his vulnerability from the public eye. This aura of mystery only added to his allure, but also invited questions. What was Roy really hiding? What was the story behind that melancholy voice? Over the years, rumors and speculation swirled about his personal life and the sources of his sadness. People knew that tragedy had touched him deeply. His wife's tragic death, the devastating loss of his sons in a house fire. Yet it seemed there was even more beneath the surface. These heartbreaks shaped his life, but they didn't fully explain the persistent sadness that came through in his performances. In recent decades, closer looks into his past have revealed the roots of his emotional struggles stretch back to childhood. Roy Orbison carried psychological trauma that was never fully addressed or healed. These hidden wounds influenced his worldview and, inevitably, his art. The pain he experienced wasn't only external misfortune, but also deep-seated emotional scars, quietly carried throughout his life. This understanding adds a new layer to his legacy. His music isn't just about romantic love or loss. It's an expression of a lifelong emotional journey, marked by resilience in the face of hardship. His soaring voice, moving from tender vulnerability to powerful crescendos, became a vessel for his complex feelings, hope, despair, and everything in between. Roy Orbison's story reminds us that behind every iconic artist is a human being grappling with real struggles. His ability to translate that struggle into timeless music is what made him a legend. It's a legacy not just of hits and melodies, but of raw emotional honesty that continues to touch listeners around the world today. One of the lesser-known chapters of Roy Orbison's life involves a medical secret that shaped not only his voice, but also his daily existence. As a teenager, Roy struggled with serious sinus problems that made breathing difficult. To fix this, he underwent multiple sinus surgeries during his adolescent years. At the time, these procedures were meant to improve his health and quality of life, but they had unexpected consequences. The surgeries, while relieving his breathing issues, appear to have altered the very structure of his vocal cords. This unintended change gave birth to the unique, haunting voice that would become his trademark. That soaring, operatic range, the extraordinary clarity and emotion in his singing, it might not have existed without those early medical interventions. In a strange way, his vocal struggles turned into an incredible gift for music lovers everywhere. Yet this gift came at a personal cost. The surgeries left Roy with chronic physical challenges, including persistent pain and frequent migraines. These health issues were a quiet burden he carried beneath the surface, something fans rarely saw behind the spotlight and stage persona. Imagine performing night after night, pouring your heart out in song, all while dealing with ongoing discomfort that could flare up at any moment. This medical background helps explain some of the intensity behind his performances. The way he could shift effortlessly between vulnerability and power, as if channeling not just artistic emotion, but deep physical endurance. His voice, so rich and expressive, was shaped by a mixture of natural talent and the scars of a difficult healing process. It's a reminder of how complex the relationship between body and art can be. Sometimes, what seems like a setback or hardship becomes the very thing that defines an artist's signature. For Roy Orbison, the challenges he faced with his health were intertwined with his rise to musical greatness. His ability to take something painful and transform it into something beautiful resonates as one of the many layers that make his legacy unforgettable. The boy who needed surgery to breathe would grow up to sing with a voice that breathes life into every lyric, every note. Behind the powerful voice and iconic songs, Roy Orbison carried heavy private struggles that few outside his closest circle truly understood. His personal journals, which have since been revealed, paint a poignant picture of a man deeply affected by emotional pain. The immense success he experienced on stage masked a much darker reality offstage. Roy was emotionally devastated by the tragic losses he endured. The death of his first wife, Claudette, in a motorcycle accident, and later the unimaginable loss of two of his sons in a house fire. These heart-wrenching events left scars that ran far deeper than anyone could see. The grief haunted him throughout his life, a constant weight pressing on his soul. To cope with this pain, Roy became increasingly reliant on prescription drugs. These were not simply recreational. They were often prescribed to help him manage anxiety, depression, and chronic pain. But the reliance also revealed how fragile he felt inside. At times, he battled feelings of despair so intense that he considered walking away from music altogether, the very thing that defined him and brought joy to millions. More alarmingly, there were moments when Roy's thoughts darkened further, and he contemplated ending his own life. This struggle with mental health is a painful but important part of his story, showing that even those who seem larger than life can face intense battles in silence. Despite these private demons, Roy continued to create timeless music that touched hearts worldwide. His ability to sing with raw emotion was not just artistry. It was a reflection of the pain and vulnerability he lived with daily. His songs became a window into his soul, expressing sorrow, longing, and hope all at once. Understanding these private struggles adds a profound layer of humanity to Roy Orbison's legacy. It reminds us that behind every star is a real person with real emotions, who sometimes faces darkness even while shining brightly. His courage in continuing his career amidst such hardship is a testament to his strength, resilience, and passion for music. In the twilight of his career, Roy Orbison experienced a remarkable and bittersweet resurgence. After years of ups and downs, his 1989 album, Mystery Girl, reaffirmed his place in music history. The album was met with critical acclaim, with tracks that showcased the same haunting vocals and emotional depth that had defined his sound decades earlier. Songs like You Got It resonated with fans old and new, reminding the world why Roy's voice was so uniquely powerful. Simultaneously, Roy became a vital member of the Traveling Wilburys, a supergroup featuring legends like Bob Dylan, George Harrison, Tom Petty, and Jeff Lynne. Together, they created music that combined their talents and experience, and Roy's presence was a highlight, blending his unmistakable voice with theirs. This collaboration introduced him to a new generation and reaffirmed his influence on the broader music landscape. But despite these public triumphs, Roy's private life told a different story. The relentless demands of touring, the emotional burden of decades of personal tragedies, and the lingering physical pain from early medical procedures had taken a deep toll on his health. The sinus surgeries he underwent as a teenager to correct breathing problems, surgeries that inadvertently shaped his iconic vocal style, left him with chronic pain and debilitating migraines that he battled quietly for years. The exhaustion was palpable, both physically and emotionally. The pressures of maintaining his career, coping with grief, and meeting the expectations of fans and the music industry created a strain that few could fully understand. Yet Roy persevered, pouring his soul into his music even as his body weakened. Tragically, on December 6, 1988, Roy Orbison suffered a fatal heart attack at the age of 52. His sudden passing shocked the world and left an irreplaceable void in the music community. Fans mourned the loss of a voice that had touched so many hearts with its vulnerability, passion, and haunting beauty. Yet Roy Orbison's legacy did not end with his death. His music continues to live on, timeless and deeply affecting. Songs filled with longing, loss, and raw human emotion still resonate across generations. His influence can be heard in countless artists who followed, inspired by the emotional honesty and unique vocal stylings he brought to popular music. Roy's story is one of profound resilience, a reminder that behind the greatest voices often lie struggles unseen by the public. His journey shows us how true art often springs from real pain, and how those hardships can be transformed into something beautiful that speaks to the universal human experience. If Roy Orbison's story and music have moved you, take a moment now to dive deeper into his incredible catalog. Listen closely to the depth behind his voice and the stories told through his songs. Share his music with someone who might need comfort or inspiration today. Celebrate his artistry by supporting music that honors genuine emotion and vulnerability. In doing so, you help keep his memory alive. You ensured that his haunting melodies, soaring vocals, and heartfelt lyrics continue to inspire and console listeners around the world. Roy Orbison's voice was more than just music. It was a beacon of hope and a testament to the power of the human spirit. So, whether you are discovering him for the first time or have been a lifelong fan, take this moment to appreciate the man behind the legend. His legacy is a gift that keeps giving, reminding us that even in the darkest moments, there is beauty to be found and a song to be sung.